Chapter 20, Economics of PACS and Related Systems. This chapter will cover the challenges that occur when an organization purchases a new PACS product, including the obstacles to overcome to even get the project approved in the first place, as well as financing the project and then measuring its value to the organization after it is installed. As you all know, capital dollars in healthcare are usually very scarce, so it is extremely hard to get a new project approved as far as finances are concerned. This is especially true with PACS since the return on investment isn't always seen monetarily. What is value? Value is described as the results of the investment divided by the cost of the investment. Results include increased profitability, increased market share, the ability to meet regulatory requirements, improvements in health status, and improvements in business processes. So obviously, as with any purchases, you want the results to be higher than the costs. So in other words, you want the purchases to be worth it as far as the business side of things go. The results I just mentioned obviously aren't monetary terms, so how does an organization measure how valuable each result is? Well, they set performance benchmarks. Performance benchmarks should be made ahead of time before the PACS is even purchased. A performance benchmark is a way to measure an intangible result. Developing a return on investment, or an ROI, is useful when trying to evaluate costs and benefits. The components of an ROI model include results, both tangible and intangible, costs of the investment to the organization, and the period of time used to evaluate the investment. The period of time usually refers to how long the PACS system lasts, or the lifetime of it. The industry standard is usually about 5 years. This number was chosen because it was long enough to accommodate the cost of the investment, but still short enough of a time period that the facility wouldn't be locked into the investment in case newer technology comes along and they might want to purchase that. That being said, most systems last at least 7 years. There are two major types of costs. There is a one-time cost, which is paid once over the lifetime. An example might be purchasing a system from the vendor. Then there are recurring costs, which are the result of operating the new system. They are often part of the operating costs of a project or the purchases. An example would be paying additional staff to help operate the new PACS system, such as a PACS administrator. Then there are other types of costs. There's hardware, which includes anything electronic that is needed to operate the system. This could include servers, workstations, monitors, and data storage devices. When you purchase a PACS, you usually end up purchasing all the hardware components from the vendor, but there are usually a few things you will still need to go out and buy, such as replacement monitors and other parts that are helpful to have as backups on site. Software is the cost charged by the vendor for using the software over the time period. If you've heard the term licensing while working with a PACS, this is what it is referring to. Vendors license their software to their customers to use, and there are a few different ways that they are able to do this. First, there is the site license, which this means that any number of users at a specific site can have access. There is a per seat license, which has a maximum number of accessible users allowed on the license. There is a per workstation license, which goes by licensing hardware instead of licensing as far as users go. There is a volume-based license. This licensing is tied to how many cases or procedures are done annually at the facility. And then there are size-based licenses, which are tied to the bed size of the hospital, which in turn means the gross revenue. So smaller hospitals pay less and larger hospitals obviously pay more. Whichever licensing method is used, you need to still be aware that licensing software can increase or decrease over time according to a few different factors. So you aren't necessarily locked in per se. Some of the factors I will go ahead and mention. Starting out, there is implementation. This is charged by the vendor for the installation. There is conversion, which is used when replacing the PACS and transmitting images from the old system to the new system, and this is usually charged per record. Training is also a factor. This includes expenses incurred when qualifying the staff to the level of competency that they need in order to operate the system. This takes staff away from the normal duties in order to train. Then there's project management. The project needs a leader, and generally this is someone from the IT department or someone that the vendor sets forth as their team lead. It could even be a third-party hired consultant as well. But however, project management is critical to achieve the long-term value of the PACS. Then there are interfaces. PACS is most effective when it integrates smoothly with another application or other applications, such as the HIS, RIS, the EMR, those kind of things. Most PACS systems do this at no extra charge, but sometimes an annual maintenance fee for custom interfaces are applied. Development is always a factor in cost as well. Most organizations will purchase a system that is considered off the shelf, but there are some organizations out there who prefer to have a PACS system custom made, and this means that they require additional modifications or maybe an enhancement to the normal PACS system. Custom made, just know that that means additional costs. When a site purchases a new PACS system, it may also trigger the organization to purchase additional things that are required to support the PACS system. These are sometimes overlooked in the purchasing budget, but nonetheless, they often still do need to be purchased. Renovation costs. They are required for the facility to accommodate the new equipment, such as workstations and housing the servers. This can also include any electrical or heating, air conditioning system modifications in order to get the facility up to par where it needs to be in order to operate the PACS. Ongoing costs. These are sometimes overlooked as well. Every facility has ongoing costs that occur for different reasons. This could be due to hardware maintenance, which covers the access to the hardware support after the warranty runs out, or software maintenance. Some vendors charge an annual fee for the software maintenance, and it usually covers or enhances any upgrades to their product that occur over time. This is usually what causes the scheduled downtime as well, if you remember. Operating costs, that's another example of an ongoing cost. With operating costs, you have the support staff, which refers to the imaging informatics staff necessary to maintain the product and just for everyday help. And then there is the equipment replacement and upgrade charges in the operating costs. This is everything that has a part that could break over time, and PACS does as well. The benefits of PACS are usually measured by either hard dollar benefits or soft dollar benefits. Hard dollar benefits deliver a measurable savings in costs or an increase in revenue. This is very appealing to the CFO of your organization, I'm sure. An example could be the cost savings of not having to use film and any chemicals for the film imaging anymore. And the hard dollar benefits are used in calculating the financial return on investment. Then there are soft dollar benefits. These can be measured monetarily, but don't necessarily translate to cost savings or revenue increases. This improves workflow by increasing the efficiency. So an example, a tech could save 30 minutes in their day by not having to hang films anymore if their department goes digital. But the site still has to pay the tech for that 30 minutes, which the tech is now making himself useful in another area. So while you may not be able to put a dollar sign on this kind of benefit, it still is a benefit to the organization. When you are developing a return on investment analysis, baseline benchmarks must be used. They need to be established because they act as a benchmark for measuring performance. They can be numeric, like the cost savings of films and chemicals that I mentioned in the last slide. They can be non-numeric, such as employee satisfaction. But whether they're numeric or non-numeric, baseline benchmarks are absolutely critical, and it is impossible to measure the performance without it. The financial return on investment analysis compares the total cost of ownership with the sum of the cash savings and inflows resulting from the hard dollar benefits compared over the measured life of the investment. I want you to take a look at table 20.2. It is on page 325 of your book. It gives an example of a return on investment analysis. The net difference between the cash inflows and the cash outflows is simply the benefits minus the costs in each of the years. Cumulative cash flow is a running total of cash inflows and outflows in each year. The cumulative cash flow number is negative for many years, usually before it goes positive in many IT projects. So just know that when you are implementing and purchasing a new PAC system, it is normal for the cumulative cash flow to be in the red for, the first maybe 3-4 years that it isn't implemented. The business case includes a few different parts. There is a description of the project. This includes the scope, the time period of the project, and the organizational resources that will be impacted. The business case also includes the relationship of the project to the strategic objectives of the organization. So I have a little typo here. This is supposed to be strategic. So the relationship to the strategic objectives of the organization, including how this project fits in with the other global IT initiatives. The business case also includes a summary of the expected benefits of the project, including why it is recommended. It also includes a detailed presentation of the benefits, including the metrics, baseline, and expected outcomes for each benefit. And a business case also has to have a return on investment analysis, which we've already discussed. As far as financing goes, it is important to not spend all of the money for a PAC system up front and then wait for the money to come in that you had originally spent on it. This means you need to have a way to finance the project over time. And we will discuss now some of the different ways to do that. Financing can come from capital investment. So this is cash generated from operations of an organization. It pays for a majority of the investment up front, and it is the least costly option over the lifespan of the investment since you're paying most of it up front. There is a capital lease option. This is usually a third-party financing over a majority of the life of the investment. And then the ownership of the system can be transferred from the third party to the hospital for a bargain price once the lease is over. So much like buying a car. This option is more expensive than buying the system outright, though. You could use an operating lease. This lease period is shorter than the life of the investment, and the hospital can cancel or upgrade during the lease term. So this could potentially allow a hospital to take advantage of any technology upgrades since they aren't necessarily locked into the lease. They can cancel or upgrade during the lease term. Then there is the ASP, which is the Application Service Provider Remote Hosting. Much like an operating lease, but it also has additional services such as including offsite processing, backup, disaster recovery. It requires less IT infrastructure investment and is a good option for healthcare facilities with limited capital and IT capabilities. It is usually provided by a vendor directly, but sometimes it can involve a third party. Then there is just straight third-party financing, which includes leasing companies and equipment vendors. But with equipment vendors, usually an organization has to make an agreement to buy additional equipment from the vendor in order to get the financing from them.